and it's this corrupted true ice. It's not as everlasting as what true ice was meant to be.
If you've driven in the north, you know how dangerous it is.
Yeah. This is what your parents warn you about when you're driving in icy conditions. That's what Lissandra's working with.
Welcome to Casuals of Runeterra, episode 40. I'm your host, Ryan, here with your other host, Hetch.
We made it into our 40s. I'm ready to get all of my senior discounts. Let's do this.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Episode 40 is just flying by.
Yeah.
I mean, to even think we've been doing it over a year now, it's very impressive.
Oh, we did it. Yay!
Yeah, they like us. They really like us.
They really like us.
So housekeeping up top. As always, you can listen to us everywhere. Follows on Twitter is the best way to keep up to date on episodes. That's at Podcast Core. That's Podcast COR. And you can send an email to podcastcore@gmail.com. And please leave a like, follow, and a short review/comment, and tell a friend to beware of the secrets below the ice and listen to the Casuals of Runeterra podcast.
I'm not even mad at that. That was smooth. That's a smooth little, sprinkling into what we're talking about today.
I need to get back to the cheesiness.
What? No. Why can't we be smooth?
Why can't we be smooth and creamy? With our cheese lines. So, state of the game. What are we playing? I'm playing something that I don't usually play. So my first foray into Shurima, barely. I'm playing a deck not by the King Giori himself, but by the guy that Giori likes to follow, whose name is Cephalopod. So a lot of Giori's inspiration comes from Cephalopod, who's also a tempo mid-range player. And he posted this Azir Darius deck. He posted 4 decks, and out of the 4 decks, this is the one that appealed to me most as far as my play style, and it is insane to the point where I think this is going to be a driver for future nerfs for burn damage. This exploits all the little doodads right now that allow you to get damage to face. Obviously, it plays Azir. It plays creatures that spawn other small creatures to boost Azir. Azir is your finisher, technically. The Darius is a one-of in there at the top end, which you barely see. It plays the PZ stuff that allows you to, or not the PZ stuff, but it plays the Noxus stuff, that allows you to do damage directly to face. And then uses those sacking abilities, obviously to target something to deal 3, right? That kind of self-sacrifice. You have the 1/2 with Fearsome that gets a boost every time something's slain. So that grows really quickly. So your finishers are essentially that thing as it gets bigger towards the end of the game. Azir, when he's finally flipped, because he flips fairly quickly in this deck, and the card that's like the Shining Beacon, which is what drew me to this deck, and I knew why Giori gave it a thumbs up approval, is it's playing Ruin Runner.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's kind of absurd because that's somebody who plays a lot of Overwhelm. I never really understood how big of a deal Rune Runner's Spell Shield is in this current meta. So it's a 6/4 with Overwhelm and Spell Shield for 5 in an aggro deck as a top end is nuts.
I'm pretty sure, wasn't I saying weeks ago that it's Ruin Runner's the all-star of Shurima? And I believe you even kind of scoffed at me, you really think so? And it's yeah, no, the other, the low end, got all of the looks because, yes, good low end will fit anywhere. But Ruin Runner's ridiculous because of Spell Shield.
Yeah, surprised Casuals of Runeterra got another one. And it hasn't caught on yet. There's actually there's a post from this week's meta. There's I forgot his Twitter handle. I'll mention it next time. But he posts every week what the meta looks like and kind of the breakdown of which cards are popular in which regions and which regions are popular. And Shurima is surprisingly super low. And even if you looked at the Twin Suns Open there wasn't much Shurima representation there in the top 16. So it looks like people are, obviously the honeymoon period is over, but there are still some cards in there where in Shurima they have really powerful cards that are applicable anywhere. So you're seeing that.
Yeah, and that's really the case. Is like the honeymoon period's over, so everyone's going to look more at what was successful, which really has just been Overwhelm when you're looking at the Shurima stuff. Like Overwhelm has really been the most successful piece of Shurima, while stuff like Talia has just been a meme. But this is a good little transition as far as our honeymoon period, because some of us are still on our vacation. Some of us haven't left the Sandals Resort on our honeymoon. I am still playing Sundisk. I'm still having a blast with what I am now going to just coin my Metal Gear deck, because
go on.
If I actually win with it, you have to watch a 4-hour cutscene before I actually win. So it's the Metal Gear deck, just flipping all those champions and then flipping the Sundisk to watch them flip again. I'm still having a lot of fun with it though, because I've made it a little bit more mid-rangey, so focusing more around Renekton than anything else, because as I was saying, the Overwhelm stuff from Shurima is the best of Shurima. So why not kind of gear myself more towards that while I'm playing the meme of Sundisk? But I am glad to hear, because I was looking at our notes and the fact that it's like I have not seen Jory playing Azir. What are you talking about? His Twitter is still on like Noxus allegiance with Flankin Darius at the face. I'm glad we're still a Jory podcast here.
It's funny how it fits in, because when it comes to my playtime and the region I play the most and what I like the most, even though I'm a fanboy of Freljord, I play Noxus the most in my history. So it's just further, to give it to our fans that we're still not talking about the Noxus region. We'll get there sooner or later, so stay tuned. So for the main topic, this episode, the cold cover-up.
Oh,
yeah, we're talking about Lissandra, which is not the story you would expect it to be when you look at the character. And Hetch will get there in a second to tell you about it. But we start with our spell as always. And this one is, once again, lore focused. So we go from card to card. And Entombed, it's not Entombed, Entomb is a cool card, right? We always talk about how little Obliterate is in the game for good reasons. It's a very powerful effect since it just destroys a card, doesn't do damage.
For good reason.
For good reason. But this one has a unique effect on it that fits really well, even into her ability in the game. So Obliterate is a 5-cost spell, fast spell, that has Obliterate a unit to summon a frozen tomb in its place. And the quote here obviously is good, which is kneel or freeze. Which is, it reminds me of, there was this title for something I saw in the past that said knife or die. Which is like, I want neither of those.
What is the third option, please?
Please, the third option, sir.
Hey, Lissandra, you cut out at the end there. I didn't hear my third option.
But Entomb is, another Obliterate keyword. It's something that we've seen on ladder, usually like a 1 or 2 of. It's not that played. It's usually played alongside the Three Sisters card, because you can create an Entomb. So most people play that to have more of an option rather than having to force himself down this pigeonhole. But the big part about this one is it has the unique effect of not only being Obliterate, but when it does its effect, Frozen Tomb, the card it puts on the stack, is a landmark card, actually. And Frozen Tomb reads, landmark, countdown 2, summon an exact copy of the obliterated unit I replace. So you're essentially it's a delay effect, right? So you get to destroy it, but it does put it in a stasis mode to be able to come back later. So you usually want to play this in a space where you're going to either swing the momentum in your favor or end the game.
Yeah, and it also gives the flexibility too of you being able to play this onto one of your own units. So that way, it's not the most ideal way to counterplay something like a vengeance or a ruination, something that's killing your unit. But at the very least, you can kind of just say, all right, instead of my unit dying, I'll just take the L and just wait 2 turns for it to come back. And this is also why you see 3 Sisters more than just straight up Entomb, because flexibility is always good in a card game.
Yeah. And the quote on Frozen Tomb takes us to our next card. So the quote is, "Our Lady will bury this world and all you know in ice," said the Draklorn Inquisitor, which is our follower here. So Draklorn Inquisitor, and in this story, once Hetch gets to it, there'll be a mention of Lissandra's Frostguard, right? Not to be confused with the Thralls and the ancient beings, which he'll explain. But the Frozen Guard is essentially a group of soldiers. Some can consider some trolls in there as well. That's kind of loose there in the details. But Draklorn Inquisitor is a unique card here. More of a mid-range and at most maybe a 1 or 2 of. Some decks still don't play it just because the benefit isn't really focused around the card it creates. But it's a 5 cost, 4/5 that has, when I'm summoned, summon a Frozen Thrall. Round end, if the countdown of any of your Frozen Thralls is 4 or less, advance them to 0. A lot of keywords.
Yeah, but don't let your memes be dreams. Go for the Frozen Thrall strategy, baby.
Yeah, go for the Frozen Thrall. So this is a good card. I mean, it's solid stats. The fact that it's able to push your early game Frozen Thrall strategy, which we'll get to after this, helps as well. And it helps ramp up the pressure immediately once this hits the board, if it can survive, which usually it can with, 5 on, with a 5 dumpy. But we get another quote here, which is, "My lady appears to me in dreams, her voice near a whisper, follow, she bids me. This command I dare not disobey."
And that is very important as far as that the lady speaks to him in dreams. This will come up. This will be on the test later.
You must obey. This is kind of the loyalty you want when you're somebody in Lissandra's shoes. So this then takes us to our landmark, which, we're going to start doing those for certain episodes where it applies. And here it applies. Because once again, another unique ability with this follower is it creates a landmark spell, which is Frozen Thrall. So Frozen Thrall has to do with the big boys of old. The second longest countdown card behind Hetch's beloved Sundisk.
Sundisk!
But it costs 1. It's a 1 cost landmark. So you can drop it early and let it kind of count down if you're playing, obviously, the Draklorn Inquisitor, like we mentioned. That will help push it forward. But what this one does is at countdown 8, it summons a Frozen Thrall. And what a Frozen Thrall is an 8 cost 8/8 with Overwhelm, which caught everybody's attention when it came out. Because everybody's like, okay, playing this on 1 and playing 8 turns in a deck focused around mid-range to late game is very plausible. And it's also a card that at some point has to be dealt with in some manner if you're not going to kill them before that time frame, right? And then when you have cards like we mentioned before that help push it forward, it's a dangerous combo.
Yeah, and it's one of those things of like just the mana that you're looking at, because it's like everyone's going to look at it with a 1 mana 8/8. You say,
yeah,
like you don't even look at the countdown at that point. All you see is 1 mana and 8/8 trample or overwhelm, and it's like yes. And so have I got like a list of some failed Frozen Thrall decks? Absolutely. And I'm sure I'm not alone. I believe this is a safe space.
So yeah, you will see this on ladder. This is a very commonly played card in that deck and in other ones as well. But we get the quote here for Frozen Thrall, which is, "Certainly there were enough half-witted warriors within the ranks of Trundle's disorderly army to use as frontline fodder. But Lissandra desired something much more loyal, something that served her and her alone." And then when Big Boy pops out, "Freed from its icy tomb, the corrupted troll knew one thing and one thing only. It must do as its dark mistress commanded." So that's a good setup for what Hetch is about to get into.
Yeah,
with this
who is
insane
the dark
story
mistress?
and almost like not even a murder mystery. It's like how would you explain it?
Like
her motive is very interesting.
Yeah, like I mean, this is a
revisionist.
This is probably like as close as we're gonna get to like a royal court, like before we get into the realm that doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. Cough, cough, Noxus. Like this is very much like the intrigues of court here, because like there's a lot of backstabbing, betrayal, but blood is still thicker than water kind of stuff. It's weird. So Lissandra, once again, we're going back into the very, very early times of Runeterra, because this is a story that kind of takes place even before Shurima is a thing, and well before Shurima gets destroyed and then brought back in the Ruination 2.0. So in this time, long before the society that Runeterra knows now, there was Lissandra as well as her two sisters, which are Cyrilda and Avarosa. Now, if you've been listening to our show before and you've caught like specifically our Ash and Sejuani episodes, definitely Cyrilda, a little bit Cyrilda, but definitely Avarosa is a name that you will recognize. So the three sisters roamed across the Freljord long before the tribes really kind of became even close to what the Runeterra knows today, and they were out in the hopes of taming the wild magics of the Freljord. And the spoiler there is that they were able to conquer the magics of the land, but they had to do so at a cost to themselves. And with these costs, it's not, it's not really bright and shiny here. The terrible prices paid was Avarosa was cast into the dark void beneath the world and deafened by its emptiness, waiting to consume all of creation. Okay. Yeah, cool. Cyrilda lost her voice, so then she became a mute, and Lissandra, the carnal magics ended up manifesting into a claw and raking her eyes out, making her blind. So yeah, bright, shiny, yes. So yeah, they all pay a price, but they do end up taming a lot of the magics that surround the Freljord.
And this is, to hop in, this is obviously a reference to the Three Wise Monkeys, for those not familiar with that Japanese tale. So check it out. It's cool.
Yeah, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil.
Yep.
All right, and this does establish them as far as a very powerful force within the Freljord, but they are still here, like they're still depicted as humans essentially. Like they're not depicted as these ancient powers like Anivia. They are still very much a mortal being, but we don't have a lot of details as far as who these three sisters were up to this point. But once they were able to tame these magics, the magic became more a part of themselves, and this is how they became Iceborn. So these are the first Iceborn of the Freljord. And then going back to our previous episodes, specifically with Ash and Braum, the Iceborn have the magics of the Freljord in their DNA, for lack of a better way of saying it. It's a part of them. And these were the first Iceborn. So the Iceborn that we know into the present timeline of Runeterra are descendants of the three sisters. All right, so now that we kind of established the start there, Lissandra, since she has lost her sight, she ends up using the magics of the Freljord to use dreams as her sight. This is not too uncommon as far as in the magic of the land. We get to see that in the Nocturne storyline, although Nocturne is just dreams itself, specifically bad ones.
Check out that episode for more.
Check that out for more. So Lissandra is using the dreams of the people of the Freljord to become her sight, but going through all of these dreams and obviously using this magic allows her to pass through just more than just the dreams of people. And this shows her visions of a force that is coming to the Freljord, a force that is beyond the plane of Runeterra. And this is where we get our first mention, at least on the show of the casuals of Runeterra, of the Void. All right. And the Void, as a lore nerd for a lot of things, if anyone's familiar with Warhammer lore, this is kind of like the realms. This is the realms of chaos coming in, but it's for Runeterra, it's the Void. It is,
or the White Walkers.
Yeah, the White Walkers from Game of Thrones. There's a lot of different stories as far as like the Frozen Wasteland being the gateway to something way worse than the Frozen Wasteland. So now the Void is going, the Void that Lissandra is able to tap into, it's kind of more like a hive mind. They all, like all the visions that she sees are all focused on one thing, which is the consumption of all. It is to eradicate everything. So Lissandra sees it and knows that the Void is coming. And what Lissandra ends up doing, since she's already in the dreams of this hive mind, is she begins to communicate with the hive mind, basically to parlay with them to spare the realm of Freljord, even though Freljord is going to be the first step in for the Void into Runeterra. And this doesn't sit well with the sisters. Avarosa and Cyrilda are not okay with this idea of like, wait, first off, you're coming to us telling us that there's this all powerful force coming to consume everything, and now we have to work for them? Hold up. What the heck? And Lissandra is now playing this game of trying to keep her sisters happy and keep them in the loop without fully revealing to her sisters how much power she's given the Void for the chance for her sisters to survive this. And there's a lot of political intrigue as far as what Lissandra is struggling to, kind of maintain a balance here. And it's a balance that can't be maintained forever, because the bottom line is the Void is coming, and the Void does come to the Freljord. And it is at this time that the first true ice age of Runeterra happens. And now we get the answer of what happens at the first true ice age of Runeterra, because the Void ends up appearing and Lissandra just freezes everything. Mm-hmm. She freezes the Void. She freezes the Watchers, who were the vanguard of the Void, essentially. She freezes them. She freezes her sisters. She freezes every living being in the Freljord in true ice. True ice being the magic of the Freljord, which is a 100% sign of someone who's iceborn. Mm-hmm. So this is an everlasting ice, and everything's frozen in place. And now the only conscious being left in the Freljord is Lissandra. And even she is frozen, entombed, if you will, within this ice age. But she's able to kind of travel through the dreams. Mm-hmm. So she's like, haha, I got you all. All right. And she thinks that she's kind of in control of everything. And now life can continue on while she's got everybody on lockdown. But what happens is that the Void is like, all right, cool. We'll wait again. And we'll use your sight to see what's going on there. And now the Void, specifically the Watchers, start traveling through Lissandra's dreams, and they are slowly just reminding her, we're coming. We are coming. And Lissandra, desperately trying to keep them at bay, keeps trying to grow her powers in the true ice to continue this ice age. But what's happening is that the ice is now being corrupted by the Watchers.
It's an inevitability that we get when we talked about like our Nocturne episode. You get that same feeling. Recently, our Kindred episode, you get that same feeling. The Watchers and the Void are just a thing that is constant, right? It's a constant threat, regardless of what you do. So everything you do is just to delay that more and more.
Yeah, like turn on your Thanos filter and put the Watcher there going, I am inevitable.
And I am inevitable.
Inevitable. And one of the things, as far as this inevitability of the Watchers going to break free, is that they begin to corrupt the true ice. And the ice, as far as what we get to see with Lissandra's art, and not only from Runeterra but from League of Legends, is that she works with black ice, essentially, and it's this corrupted true ice. It's not as everlasting as what true ice was meant to be.
If you've driven in the north, you know how dangerous it is.
Yeah. This is what your parents warn you about when you're driving in icy conditions. That's what Lissandra's working with. And of course, while everything is frozen and this true ice is being corrupted, life starts picking back up in the Freljord. And this is when we get to see that the other sisters are also using this frozen domain as a way to try to pass on the true ice. And we get to see that with a lot of the descendants that are iceborn. What we don't know, or did not know until this point, is that Lissandra creates the Frost Guard. And the mention of the Frost Guard from a lot of the cards would be like the Dark Lord Inquisitor, and even the Thralls, the Frozen Thralls, are Frost Guards. And for a lot of the other Freljordian powers, they refer to these as thralls, kind of brainless monsters. But what they actually are these beings that are corrupted by corrupted true ice and controlled by Lissandra to maintain the current balance of this frozen wasteland. And their goals are to eliminate the heirs of the other sisters. So they are a group of assassins that are killing Iceborn. That should give an idea of how powerful a lot of the Frostguard are. And their other goal is also to collect more of this true ice. So this magical ice that Iceborn are able to create, and bring it to Lissandra to reinforce this frozen wasteland to keep the Watchers frozen. And it's at this point that we get to see what Lissandra's doing in present day. Is now she is just still in her tomb that she made for herself, but she's now watching Ash and she's watching Sejuani, which she believes are to be the newest descendants of her sisters. And she's waiting for a chance to pit them against each other so that hopefully they can take each other out, or at least take one of them out and the Frost Guard can do the rest, so that she can collect their true ice to keep the Watchers frozen, because she knows that time is running out and that the Watchers will soon break out if something doesn't change.
Yep.
And that's where we leave off with Lissandra.
Yeah, it's a very interesting story when you think about the character. And from my standpoint, to have, for those who aren't familiar with the story of the Wise Monkeys, is the whole gist is containing evil, right? Not informing others, essentially looking the other way, right? And Lissandra, although she cares about her sisters during this whole time, is still concealing very valuable information, not really even knowing how her sisters would have reacted or helped. She's trying to control the full situation, which after everything's said and done, and she's kind of fumbling the ball, per se, when you have Sejuani and Ash pop up, is she's still trying to find a way to revise the history that people are now catching on to. Because remember, you have a bunch of, these are tribal people in this area, and she's trying to keep it from spreading any further than the Freljord. Yeah. So she doesn't want them catching on, and she also doesn't want word spreading about what's going on because of what that means for her. And it's a kind of, I messed up and I'll fix my mistake by myself. So there's some stubbornness there as well when it comes to Lissandra.
Yeah, yes, I made a mistake, but it's okay. I will now create this Frost Guard, and I will kill everybody that points out my mistake, and then the mistake never happened.
Yep.
It's easy. There can't be any witnesses if there are no witnesses.
Exactly. And then we get into the card, which is
The card is so much fun. This card is great.
Alternative win conditions. I'll let Hedge talk so I don't ruin this.
Boo-hoo, you. All right. Okay, so Lissandra is a 3-mana 2/3 with tough. So that's already kind of good. And when I am summoned, summon a frozen thrall, which again is the landmark with the countdown of 8. And one of the key things is that countdown, the Frostguard Thrall that comes out of it is an 8-cost unit, which is important for Lissandra's card because her level up condition is you have summoned 2+ allies that cost 8 or more mana. And when I level up, create a Watcher in hand. All right, so the Frozen Thralls do go towards her level up if you're able to actually get the countdown to go through. Otherwise, if you're playing a lot of top-end, heavy late-game stuff and you make it there, you're going to level up Lissandra. All right? And Lissandra, the level up is already pretty strong because she becomes a 3/4 with tough. Your Nexus now has tough. All right? So when Lissandra's in play, your Nexus is tough. So any instance of damage that is dealt to your Nexus is reduced by 1. And that's important because at the round start, for level up Lissandra, she creates a fleeting 0-mana Ice Shard in hand. An Ice Shard is usually a 3-mana spell that does 1 damage to everything. So it does 1 damage to all allies, all enemy units, and both Nexus. But if you have Lissandra in play, it's only the enemy Nexus. So it gives like this little counter. This is just kind of like ticking away at your HP. And that right there is already kind of like a fun, like little game to play as far as like a mini game of getting to this point to where you're inevitably ticking away. But that's not the alternate win condition that would tick off Ryan here. No. He doesn't care about that. Who cares about HP? He cares about the card that's actually fun here, all right, which is the Watcher. Now, the Watcher, we just talked about how these are like void beings. So, what kind of inevitability are they bringing to the table? All right, it's a 17-mana card, which if you're aware of how Runeterra works, the max amount of mana is 10 mana with 3 spell mana that you can bank. So the most mana you could ever have is 13. So already unplayable. All right. And the Watcher, I cost 0 if you have summoned 4+ allies that cost 8 or more mana this game. All right. So then it becomes a 0 mana, 11/17. No other keywords, but on the attack, obliterate the enemy deck. Yay for Mill, baby! This card is just fun, and it's also like the reality is I have not actually seen the Watcher trigger in any of my games. Most of the time, like if the times that I have lost to Lissandra decks, I die to just damage on board. Like I'll usually die because I have chump blockers and they can't block 8/8 overwhelms. Yeah. So I've never gotten it to see this like actually tick off in my personal games, and I've only ever seen this tick off in like really high level play, like either like streams like Swim or Grappler. And the last time I saw this tick was actually at the Twin Suns tournament. A guy did get to pull this off, and it didn't matter because it was still lethal on board. So it's like, yeah, I obliterated your deck, but you die before you get to draw a card anyways. So I don't know why you're like, alternate win conditions. Like, chill, bro.
I've lost this effect a good bout, like on curve.
Of course you have.
Oh, dude. So to those who don't know, there's a 6 mana Shadow Owls card that can create an ephemeral version of something for 0. And that is the card that people use to get this into play in a reasonable amount of time. So if things line up, and it's usually right before the turn I'm going to kill them, is when this puppy comes out on their attack token, and then they attack, and I surrender because I refuse to watch it happen. And it's it's one of those things where it's whatever. I mean, the deck plays it pretty straight anyways. It's not an alternative win condition where you're focused on that. It's just it gives you a timer on the game more than anything. So most Lissandra decks end up winning the traditional way, like a control deck. It's just a really good control format.
Yeah, like of course you died of it. Like, I find that hysterical because you just like it's not even a thing of like me trying to like make fun of like how did you let that happen? Like, you know, if a deck's built to do it, it's gonna do it every now and then. But of course it happened to you because you hate alternate win conditions so much. Specifically, like one of the games that I lost to Lissandra, I didn't even lose to the Watcher. It triggered on me, but I'm playing Sundisk, so I literally held a leveled up Azir in my hand. Like after the Sundisk flipped, and I just held it, and then it was just like, okay, the Watcher swung. I chump blocked it, and then I play Azir, and I made the Emperor's deck, but like I was able to chump block it, yeah, but I was down to 2 HP, so then I sharded me for 1 HP, and then they made another fleeting one for the next turn, and I sharded me again on
That's a pretty good play, though,
and I died.
That's a pretty good play.
I mean, there are ways around it, but you know, again, like the Sundisk isn't a good deck, so it's not like that's something that you can tell people to do.
So this is the point where it takes us to our question here, and this one's pretty straightforward. Which of the 3 sisters is your favorite? So my answer is boring, obviously, because of my queen, Avarosa, right? Kind of plays it straight. She was supposedly the good sister, but there's nothing really satisfying from her side when it comes to story content, because obviously like Lissandra would be the one I would go to when it comes to story. Obviously she's a champion, she has the most fleshed out, so there's no surprise there. But yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Avarosa just for the sake of branding. Gotta stay on brand.
Well, then that works because we already know that I'm going to be on brand. Cyrilda, conquer me, mommy.
Good old Hedge, always looking for a chance to get stepped on.
Just run me over. just go ham.
So with that, as always, thanks for listening, and we will be back soon with the next episode.
And then a quick shout out and thank you to everybody participating in the Twin Suns tournament, and a congratulations shout out to Martin Carton, who ended up taking it all. So that was a lot of fun to watch, and hopefully you get to see more tournaments like that.
Yeah, check out their Twitter, which is at Twin Suns, at the Twin Suns, I believe.
Yeah, at the Twin Suns Pod.
Yeah, at the Twin Suns Pod, and then check out runeterraccg.com, because they did write-ups alongside the tournament to kind of break down the metagame and also the deck list that were in the top 16. So just great job all around from everybody involved.
Yeah, really good job.
Yeah, we're looking forward to the next one to help out in any way we can. So with that, we'll bring it to an end, and we'll see you guys soon, the next episode.
All right, take care, everybody.